Okay, so still November 16th, right? Moving kind of slow. I asked Tisha to buy me this size jars, and we just haven't gotten around to it yet, but I need like a couple more cases. Well, more than a couple, but anyway. This is all I've got for jars, so this is what I'm going to use, right? This time, people, I'm only doing 2 eggs. I've decided just to keep them like this, right? And then I'm going to add in at least one big heaping spoon of cottage cheese, right? And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to pour it into the potatoes. Now these are potatoes from my garden, right? I tried to chop up the peels as best as I could, right? Because this is organic potatoes. So you want those peels. So they're in there, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. And it's different. It's a mixture of different potatoes. They're like the little purple potatoes, the white potato, the red potato, and the russet potato. It's just little miscellaneous potatoes as I was digging up my potatoes. So that's how much we got. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to mix it in there. And that's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to put them in here. I've already sprayed them down. And then, because I'm trying to cook the egg for the most part, that's what I'm trying to do, right? Okay? And then I'm going to poach it. And then I'm going to let it, take it out, put it on there, and I'm cool. And I've done, what is this? This is the, I put butter in there. You can see it. So I'm going to mix the butter in really, really good. So this is yam with a little bit of sweet potato. More yam than sweet potato. I somewhat mashed it so it's soft, whatever. And then as I go along, I'm going to put a little bit of yam on each side, right? And then the potato with the egg already in with the cottage cheese that's been poached, I'm going to put on the other side. I'm going to freeze them like that, people. Hold on a minute. Okay, so I'm going to keep this as a very short video. As soon as I'm done, I'm uploading it. As you can see, it's not going to take that long. So as you can see, what I've done here, right, because you don't want to make it into a mud, right? You want to make sure that they have the individual flavors. So when this is done cooking, I've got it poaching now, right? You've seen what I did. It was just a bit of potatoes with 2 eggs and a little bit of cottage cheese. But it has to be cooked, people, right? You're going to kind of cook it through, right? So this is what this is doing. It's going to poach it, and it's going to cook that egg. And then I'm going to put it on here, let it cool. And then I'm going to fill the other half of the jar. And that's it, right? And because it's not really a liquid, you can put your lids on and have the screw band on, but just not tight. So if it pushes up, right, it's not going to crack the jar. And then there's a little bit left over for Amari yet. Hold on. Oh, yeah. Here's my yogurt maker box. Like I said, I'm having a jar crisis in terms of I don't know where to be putting all my jars. So as I'm using them, you know, I'm like, oh. So right now I'm kind of like stacking them up in boxes, but obviously pulling them out as I need them. Okay, so what's happening here is it worked out actually pretty good. The only thing is I don't know how to poach. I almost burnt my, what is it called? Frying pan. I boiled out the water because I was cooking it on high. But really, all you're doing is just cooking the egg. If you notice, if you can see, when I took those things out and flipped them over, right? They're pretty much retaining their shape because that's what the egg did. It helped to hold its shape, right? And in this case, you just cut off a piece, right? And you just take and put it into your jar like that, right next to your. I mean, this is the first time I've done it, right? So you can see what I'm doing here. So what I would do, in this case, is I just take a spoon and just tap it down. Now, obviously, I could have done more in the jar, but as a side dish to something else, whatever that something else is, you can see how well this would work. And this one's a little low, right? But that's okay. This is just an experiment. And from what I'm gathering from it, you're taking out the air pockets. That's what you're kind of doing, right? From what I can see, it's working out pretty good. And I tasted it. And it's actually quite good, people. So you can just top it off. I got 6 more coming. Uncle Mercane had one. And then we were talking, and now next week I'm going to do an Uncle Mercane side dish on what we were talking about, and you'll see. Do you see how easy that is? Look at that. That's pretty good, right? Hold on. Okay, so doing it this way, you have to pay attention to the water. Because the water is, with the first batch, disappeared, right? I caught it just in time before I really started to, what do you call it? Heat up my pan, and it was hot, trust me. Okay? So, but it kind of had an advantage, though, because it dried everything out. If I was to lift up the lid right now, you can see the water is the steam is condensating in there, right? And it's dripping back in. So when you open it up, it's not as firm as if I let the water evaporate more and just give it a bit of dry heat. I wouldn't say dry heat, but drier heat than what it's getting right now. But you want this, though, for it to go through the potato and cook the egg right through. And I like the idea, people, I'm telling you, I like the idea of the cottage cheese because I didn't put no salt in this. Absolutely no salt. Maybe just a few sprinkles when I was boiling potatoes. But outside of that, I didn't put nothing in the potatoes outside of the cottage cheese. And these things are actually quite good. And in discussion with Uncle Mercane, I've decided that next week I'm going to do a Uncle Mercane's side dish. Yeah, just from what I did today. Yeah. And then, as my kitchen clears out more, right? And I have easy access to my, what do you call those things? Cookie sheets and my bowls and, right? Like, this is not a very big kitchen. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful to have this kitchen, but it's not a very big kitchen. And, but once I, take a few things downstairs now that the cupboards are down there, and they're safe, and I can open up a cupboard here. What's going to end up happening is what I'm doing for Amari, and because I used to do this, people, right? I wasn't in the kitchen just for 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. It wasn't 12 hours a day for 7 hours a day. No, it was 12 hours a day for 7 days a week. For years, people, for years, basically. Right? If I cooked a lot in one day, you're lucky that you can take a break, right? The next day and just kind of like, right? Because you overcooked, right? But then you have to, second day, going into the third, you got to start all over again. So, in those days, I used to do TV dinners too, right? And I told my son, like when I did that chicken pot pie with him, he really liked it. So, he eats these quite regularly, the chicken pot pies, right? So, it started off with apple pies. We used to do 50 apple pies at one time, and I'd freeze them. And then, we've done the chicken pot pies, and I think he helped me a long time ago, but it's not something I normally make, right? And, but I'm going to, though, right? Andre will eat them, right? And so, anyway, I've got, what is it called? Aluminum pie pans like this, which are a little sturdier than this, right? But I've got them buried away because those are the pie pans, some of them, that I used to use when I used to make those apple pies with my son, and we'd just stack up the freezer full of apple pies because I'd get like big boxes of apples from the Okanagan up there, right? And anyway, and I did TV dinners. So I've got these old, I know they're old people. Like they're, maybe somebody might say, oh, I remember those. That's how old they are, okay? They're the old Ziploc. That's a brand name, right? TV dinner things. They're blue, right? They have a tray on the bottom, and they're about this size, and something goes over top. And in those days, I was living at Wally's house, right? I'm waiting for this, but I don't want to burn my frying pan. And that's how old they are. Okay? I haven't lived at Wally's house since 2002. Right? So that's a long time. How many years? And I had those things in Wally's house. I was using those things in Wally's house. So we're looking at almost 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. Maybe longer than that. So anyway, I told him I'm going to pull him out. And he, well, not, you know, he's satisfied because he wants to make some, you know, kind of like TV dinners with my aluminum pans, right? Pie pans. And I told him that's fine with me as long as he looks after them. And then I said, well, now that we're talking about that kind of stuff, I'm going to pull out these old Ziplocs, because, you know, I'm going to now, as I get more space, I'm going to take it up one level, right, and make the little TV dinners that I wouldn't use in a microwave, people, even if it was in a microwave utensil, right, to be able to, like, the Ziploc ones I think are microwavable. It wouldn't matter whether it was an aluminum. The thing about aluminum, though, like a pie pan, you can put it in the oven and heat it up that way, like the traditional TV dinner, right? Otherwise, I would just take it and just put it into the pan with a bit of water on low and heat it up that way, and then just, you know, bring up the heat real fast, do what you want to, sear it, whatever, bubble it, whatever you want to do, and you're good to go, right? So, no, I'm not, in other words, I'm not going to be just doing these over the course of the next year, we'll just say, right? I'm going to be getting into bigger meals, right? Not a lot, not as much as I used to in terms of the quantity, but it's something that I want to do, right? Because Andre's growing, right? And even though my son says, oh, I'm not interested in, what is it called? Baked macaroni. Why would I want baked macaroni TV dinner? And in my mind, I'm going, wait, you ain't seen nothing yet, right? So next week, we're going to do an Uncle Mark Haynes side dish. So these things are almost done, and then that will be the end of this video, so hold on. Okay, so we're going to finish this video. As it's cooking, you're going to want to bring it up and have it a good real steam, right? Because you want it to go through the potato and cook that egg, right? And you don't want it real soppy wet in there, so boil down your water a bit, okay? These are little things I'm already figuring out. And listen, if you hear it, then you know the water isn't burning out, because you kind of want to let it dry out a little bit in there, right? But you have to cook it long enough. So anyway, they popped out pretty good. It's still kind of warm, but as it cools, if you notice, it's forming, it's not flaking. Do you see that, people? Right, for the most part. Right? The cooler it gets. And I have a little left over for Amari, which in this case I'm just going to add a tablespoon of butter in there, which will be really, really good, and maybe just a dash of salt. And whatever you think, right? You just cut it, put it in your jar. It fits in quite nicely. Right? and then pop them in the freezer. When you have these on, I have only one hand. Don't screw your lid on tight. Now, because there's a lot of room in there, I'm not worried about anything rising. If it was liquid, maybe. But in this case, nothing's going to really rise. So you don't have to worry about having a lid on it at this point. You can put a lid on it. Just don't screw your screw bands on really tight, right? Because, the air will release itself. The band will shift. Just enough so that, tomorrow you can just come and that will be done. But other than that, people, it worked out pretty good. I don't know if using the spray can is any different than melting butter or whatever and rubbing it with your hand. Each time, even when I sprayed it, I still kind of had to rub it with my fingers. So I have the horsehair type, right? The horsehair basting brushes. You remember those kind? Not the plastic ones, but the actual horsehair ones. I've got some around. I just have to find them. I think I would prefer to use that. And I could keep on making batch after batch after batch, even though, right, some of it is on there. Because when you get it to the right consistency in terms of drying it out a bit, that's why, like this here with the little bit of water, I could have actually brought it down another 1/8 of an inch, almost right dry. Because then the moisture, the condensation evaporates, and then it just helps to set that. However, these aren't completely cool yet. So the cooler they get, the more firmer they get. So, which is what you kind of want. And then you cut it and you just piece it in. And then you can see how well between the two, right, it complements. Do you see? And even if you were to cook it up and not give Amari, that's too much at one setting, but I could break it up in 2 settings. Right? Cook it up, give them half with something else, right? Maybe a fermented cucumber or something or whatever. And then the next day, I can give them the other half if I haven't eaten it or somebody else hasn't eaten it. So I think that's pretty good. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that doing it this way, you control the amount of egg. It's fine and dandy to give Amari an egg. See, it's simple. You take how much you think you can fit into your jar, right? And actually, I like this size that I'm using here. This works out really well. Giving Amari like a whole egg scrambled, right, with some cottage cheese or whatever, is fine, but it's not something that you want to rely on. I would think anyway. As a every day or every second day staple, maybe 2 times a week, because right, maybe 2 times a week, where what do you call it? He has the actual whole egg by itself, right? Versus giving him 4 or 5 eggs a week, you're giving him maybe 2 or 3 eggs a week. But you're also giving him egg in the potato, people. You're also giving him egg with that, what I poached with the peas inside. Right? So, see, this one's a little soggy. And this is what I mean about maybe kind of getting your pan to the point where it almost has no water. Because the water makes it a little soggy, right? But this is going to get heated up anyway, right? So I'm not too worried about that. Although I prefer them a little more firm. So if you're going to do this, boil it vigorously for a bit to get that heat penetrating. And then, bring it down to a point where, in terms of the water in the pan, almost down to a dry cook, and you'll find that it will set it better. So yeah, in this instance, I'm going to show you what I'm doing here. In this instance, he's still getting egg, people. He's getting the yolk and the white part of it, but he's just not getting it in, a large portion in terms of an actual whole egg, right? You know, he likes eggs. He'll eat eggs, but it's not something that I'd want to feed him every day, an egg. I think it would be too hard on his digestive system. Right? Now, in this case, see, here it's low. You can see, first time around. Second time around, I've almost got them full, right? So whatever is a little left in here in terms of potato, just top it off in your other jar if you're not going to fry it and give it to him later, right? And then you don't lose anything on this, right? Just, do you see, it's not even screwed on, so if it started to rise, the jar itself would start to turn, right? Initially. However, if you've got it at that height with something solid, chances of it rising up and popping off, it's not going to, right? If it was liquid, maybe. So I'm just telling you that, right? I'm just spreading out what little leftover potato I have, because I've got enough there for him for a meal, because he ate what I made the other day with on Amari's little side dish with the tomatoes, right? An egg. So he already got I just have to spread this out. He already got the second half of that today, and he gobbled it up. So this stuff, it really does work. Itchy throat. Right. And now we've got Uncle Marcaine on the list. Well, maybe I should say menu. Uncle Marcaine's side dish. Right. Next it will be... Huh? Menu. Yeah. Uncle Marcaine's side menu. There we go. Uncle Marcaine's side menu. Next it will be Andre with something. So do you see? I just topped him off, right? And then when you screw on your cap, because whatever, right? Just loose. Just loose, right? Just so loose, right? It's see? Just, and then once it's frozen, then you can, right? All right, that's it.